Ralph Sanji, WGSO.
In 1814, we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we caught the bloody British in a town in New Orleans.
Welcome to the Battle of New Orleans Radio with your hosts David Abedy and Nathan Lawrenson on WGSO 990 AM and at WGSO.com. They're fighting for freedom and discussing local, national, and international issues that affect all of us here in this great city. Questions or comments for your host or their guest. The number to call is 504-556-9696. And now, here are your hosts of Battle of New Orleans Radio, David Abedy and Nathan Lawrenson.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Battle of New Orleans Radio. Tonight, I'm your host, Nathan Lawrenson of TheDailyResistance.com. And we are joined via phone by Mr. David Abedy of MetroNow.com.
Hey, how you doing, Nathan? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir. You coming in loud and clear.
Perfect.
All right, tonight's show, we have a very special guest, Phil the Patriot. This guest is for you. So if you're listening, Phil the Patriot, please call in. Our guest tonight is a food activist, an author. She is a very successful blogger. She's had some great successes battling the food corporations from a real grassroots level. And this guest tonight, her name is Miss Vani Hari, a.k.a. the Food Babe. How you doing, Vani? You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, we're really, really pleased to have you on tonight. I'm really excited to talk to you. I would rather sit down and talk to, people as yourself than eat lunch with Michael Jordan, because you, through grassroots movement, you have really made a difference. You've showed people how to get up off the couch and really, make a difference in their lives, because, who knew that somebody could, just by blogging and putting information out there about some of these food corporations, about some of these food additives could really, get them to change. And that just goes to show you that we do have power and that we have to believe in this power. So, Vani, please, tell us what led you down this path to becoming the Food Babe. How did you start, and how did you get there?
Well, I grew up like most people here in America on the American standard diet. And, what was different about my upbringing is I had two immigrant Indian parents who really didn't know much about the American food system and had a lot of trust, actually, in the American food system when they came here to the United States to get a better life, to have more opportunity. And, they really wanted myself and my brother to fit in. And so they didn't really require us to eat the traditional Indian food that my mom would cook every night for herself and my dad. Instead, they really let me and my brother eat American food, everything that, the kids at school were eating and my neighbors across the street. And so, growing up, I had fast food probably 3 or 4 times a week, maybe even more. I always tried to eat, the school lunch. My mom would make my lunch sometimes, but most of the time I would eat the school lunch, so whatever, the cafeteria had, and a lot of it was very processed. And then at night, because my mother didn't have those, handed down American classic recipes, she relied mainly on the processed food industry you'd find at the grocery store. So, the things that come in a box, like Betty Crocker and the Salisbury steak that you put in the microwave and the frozen mozzarella sticks you put in the Fry Daddy. And so I grew up on a lot of foods that, frankly, didn't have a lot of nutrition value to them. And as a result, now looking back, I realized that many of the health issues I had as a child that I thought were genetic were actually related to what I was eating. Because as soon as I cleaned up my diet in my early 20s after a health crisis, everything I experienced as a child went away. And so when I was growing up, I had very severe eczema, asthma, allergies. In my early adulthood, I experienced endometriosis. I had appendicitis. So I had a lot of health issues just for most of my life, in and out of doctor's offices, being prescribed several different kinds of prescription drugs to control all these different ailments. And when I had that health crisis, when I had appendicitis and landed in the hospital and I was overweight, feeling very sick, and just not really feeling good about myself because I was in my early 20s and, I wanted to look good. I wanted to meet a man to marry and I wanted to feel good. And I was working this very, very stressful job where, you're living the typical American rat race lifestyle, running into the office before your boss got there and leaving after your boss left and really trying to be ambitious and try to succeed. At my first job right out of college, I gained a lot of weight, and that's what I think, pretty much brought on my appendicitis was like the low fiber diet I was having, which, was in a lot of really processed foods. I'm talking, huge plates of Italian food at lunch that was being catered in, and donuts for breakfast, and muffins for breakfast, and bagels, and not a lot of exercise, and just a lot of travel and a lot of stress with work. And so I landed in the hospital with appendicitis, and it was that moment when I was recovering from that surgery that I kind of made this decision that I didn't want to feel this way anymore. I didn't want to look this way. And so I started to investigate kind of, what I'd been eating, what can I change, how can I get healthier, what are the ways that I can lose weight. And what I started to discover really unearthed a whole Pandora's box of information. I started utilizing these skills that I learned in high school when I was a top-tiered ranked debater. I was number one in state 3 years in a row, was recruited to college for debate. And one year's topic when I was debating in high school was healthcare. And I was using that information back then to win debate rounds, but I really wasn't using it for my own health. And as soon as I had this health crisis, I started to remember and channel that energy of like, oh my gosh, the food system and the healthcare system and everything's kind of related. And, and I started to make these connections, and I started to just have this insatiable thirst for knowledge about nutrition and started reading every nutrition book I could get my hands on. And a lot of them were really like, kind of like dieting for dummies type books, right? Not the most scholarly books, but some of the books that I picked up were actually very scholarly and very thick and very intimidating. Books like Conscious Eating and Spiritual Nutrition. These super thick books that talk about the true health aspects behind food that we're eating. And I started to incorporate many of the principles in those books into my own diet, and things just started to change. Not only did the weight fall off, but I started to feel so much better to the point where all of my prescription drugs, all 8 of them, just became expired. And I stopped taking them, and I've been off of them for several years now, eating a real, organic-based, plant-based diet. I still eat meat, but I eat very little amounts, and I eat dairy in a very little amounts. And I eat a mainly plant-based diet, nuts, seeds, quinoa, brown rice, lots of, oats, lots of plants, kale, chard, collards, spinach, arugula. I'm eating dark leafy greens every single day now, and it's like it has totally changed not only my body from within, but from the outside too. For most of my life, I never thought of myself as pretty. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel beautiful at all. And because I had all the eczema on my face, and I was really, my face was a different shape just because of all the inflammation in my body from what I was eating. And so when I look back at pictures of, how I used to look and what I look like now, it's a true testament to what healthy eating can do and how you can start to feel more confident about your looks. And so people around me, my friends, my family members, especially my coworkers, saw this transformation, saw this from a person who wasn't very confident about their looks, didn't look that well, to now this new being of health. And they started to ask questions. They started to ask me what I was doing. They especially my really close friends, saw year after year I was able to maintain my weight without dieting when most of them were on diets, going on and off diets all the time. And And so I started to tell them about some of the things that I started to discover about the food industry. And I while I was telling them, I continued to learn, and I just really, frankly, couldn't shut up about it. And so eventually, my close friends convinced me to start a blog. And originally, I wanted to call it EatHealthyLiveForever.com. And this, that name, according to my husband, who's the technique in the family, was a stupid name. And he thought that nobody would remember that. And so he actually came up with the name Food Babe. And at first, I was very shy about using it because, again, I didn't feel confident for most of my life. And so I asked my friends, I'm like, what do you think about this name for the blog? And they loved it, and they gave me the encouragement to use it. And so I registered the name, and then shortly thereafter, my dad got very sick. And just a year before, my mother-in-law actually died of cancer. And so all of these kind of situations with my really close family members dying of cancer, and then also my dad getting diagnosed with cancer, really spurred my passion even more for organic living and learning on what are the different preventative ways we can do to hopefully prevent some of these issues. You know, we never know if we're going to be exposed to some of these chemicals unknowingly, but if we can prevent the exposure for the things we do know, I think we should do that, and we should take that preventative caution. And so I started becoming even more passionate about it. And so that was August, and registered the name, waited quite a bit to start the blog, didn't start until April of the next year. And it wasn't until I actually gave up television for Lent. And I'm not Catholic, but, you know, it was Fat Tuesday, and I know you guys celebrate it hard down there.
That's right.
It was Fat Tuesday, and all my friends were giving up something. And so I said, you know what, I need to give up television because I need to find time after work to blog and to teach my friends and my family what I'm eating and what I'm doing. And they're asking for this information, and I think they really need it because I really want to share my lifestyle with them. And so finally, giving up television, I found time to blog. And so I started blogging under the name Food Babe. And because I was still working in the corporate world, and because you weren't really supposed to have a Facebook account and a Twitter account and all these different social media platforms as a corporate citizen, because I was working for C-level executives, I was actually never on any social media before I started the blog. And the only reason I started social media was to spread the blog to my friends who I wanted to reach. So, and they kind of convinced me to do it. I had like an intervention. You know, they're like, how are you going to tell people about your blog if you're not on Facebook? And I was like, I know nothing about blogging. I know nothing about Facebook or Twitter or any of these social media platforms. I was frankly pretty scared of them. I was scared of being so open and, you know, thinking about all the privacy issues and things. And so it was really uncomfortable blogging at first. And so I kind of hid my identity on the blog. I didn't even actually have my photo on the blog for the first year and a half on the top header. I actually would sign each blog post Food Babe. And so as I was writing and starting to get ideas of things I wanted to write about, I started to want to write about the ways that I'd been duped. You know, I had thought something was healthy, but really wasn't. And one of the first blog posts I wrote that really struck a chord was a blog post entitled Chick-fil-A or Chemical Filet. And this was inspired because my husband came home one day and he had a pamphlet from Chick-fil-A, and he was coming home from work, and I said, oh gosh, did we eat there? You know, because I'd given up Chick-fil-A long ago because I'd known it was just terribly processed and factory farmed, and I just didn't want to support that. But I really didn't know what was in it. You know, I always knew it was like, you know, it wasn't really high calorie food. It was just, you know, and it was considered maybe the cleaner, you know, fast food and the healthier fast food. And so that's why I ate it for so long. But, you know, I gave it up because eventually it just tasted very processed to me. And so when my husband came home with that pamphlet, I was really worried. I was like, did you eat there today? And he said, no, actually, you know, I was trying to convince another girl at work not to eat there. And she brought me this pamphlet and said, you know, look, Finley, this is only 390 calories. This is really healthy. And he's like, no, you need to look at the back of the pamphlet where they list the ingredients. And there was close to 100 ingredients in a Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich. And many of those ingredients were very controversial chemicals that the FDA only allows in a certain amount because of toxicity issues. And so I was like, goodness gracious, why do they need 100 ingredients to make a chicken sandwich with 2 pieces of bread, chicken, and a pickle? And so I realized that one of the first ingredients in Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich was also MSG. And knowing what I learned about MSG, about how it makes you remember a flavor, how it makes your taste buds stimulated, how it makes you overeat, it made me kind of mad because even right now as I talk, my taste buds are salivating talking about Chick-fil-A. I know exactly what it tastes like, even though I haven't had it in years. And so I posted a picture of that ingredient list on my personal Facebook page just to get reactions from my personal friends, not even on the fan page of Food Babe. And the reaction was all over the place. It was, that's 100 ingredients of deliciousness. And some people really defending, Chick-fil-A. And then there was the other side of like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And I just realized that many of the people out there, when they see these ingredient lists, they don't really understand what those ingredients are because they're not food. They're man-made chemical additives that have been invented in the last 50 years.
Yeah,
and do they really understand where these ingredients come from? And so I spent the next, I'd say, couple hours. It was a Saturday that I was blogging, and I spent the next couple hours blogging about those ingredients and what some of those ingredients might mean and what they do and why they're controversial. And that's what led to that blog post. And that blog post went so viral that eventually it was shared so many times along with another blog post that I wrote when I actually went in and interviewed different parents about why they take their kids to Chick-fil-A, and just getting down to the root of why people think this is healthier than McDonald's when they're using the same exact ingredients. They invited me to their headquarters. And at first, when I got the email, and I tell this story actually in my new book, The Food Babe Way.
Yeah, I have a copy of that. It's a great book.
Oh, thank you. When I got that email, I was a little bit nervous. I was like, oh, it's like meeting with the enemy. They're serving factory farm chicken, and look at all the bad ingredients. Could they ever change? I was very skeptical if they could ever change. I didn't really think I could be a change agent. I thought I could change individual decisions, but I never thought in a million years I'd be able to change a company with my writing. And when I went to go visit with them, despite my initial reaction, not only did they listen, but they started to remove some of the chemicals that I spoke about in that blog post. But they also made a commitment to go antibiotic-free, which is something no other fast food chain of that size had ever done before, completely eliminating its use of all antibiotics, including the animal kind and the human kind, which, McDonald's just made an announcement that they're removing the human kind from their chickens. And it's a very complex issue, but, and so, having that kind of power, just opening the door and talking about these issues and letting companies know that consumers really want access to healthier food, they do start to listen. Yeah. And so that's what actually inspired me to ended up quitting my corporate job and then becoming an activist full time.
Yeah, people have really been brainwashed to count calories and not chemicals, when we really need to start counting the chemicals and not as much the calories. Who cares if it's only got 50 calories in it, but it's made out of a rubber tire? Who cares about that? And, you're talking about being able to, have an effect on Chick-fil-A. That just goes to show you when you have people behind you, like you have with the Food Babe Army, which I'm glad and proud to say that I am a member. With the food with the Food Babe Army, you were able to make a change. That just goes to show you we're able to make a difference with voting with our dollar. Because if the word gets out and there's a big push behind a mass amount of people, then these corporations, if they want to continue to make money and make profits, then they're going to have to listen to the consumer. Look at McDonald's profits, they're starting to drop. They're starting to plummet. Look at Monsanto's profits. They're starting to plummet because people are getting sick and tired of eating this corporate swill.
Yeah, no, they do. And that is what's so powerful about this movement is that, I think the reason why foodbabe.com has been so successful is I'm finally talking in a way that finally relates to consumers. And because I am a consumer, I am an everyday person. I'm not a food scientist or a professor or, a nutritionist. I'm an everyday person who grew up on these foods, that ate all of these foods, that has friends and family still eating some of these foods. And I'm in a situation where I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't live in a city that has an organic juice bar on every corner, and we do have an organic juice bar, which is great, but, we don't have a lot. And so, I feel like, my experiences, when I share my experiences, many people can relate to that. And many people can relate to healing themselves through eating natural, real, organic foods, too. And so they want to spread that message because they realize how good they feel, and so they want their friends and family to realize this health as well. And so they're so passionate. I mean, the Food Babe Army are the people out there that are not only voting with their dollars, but they're so passionate that they call companies. They go to their Facebook pages. They write letters to them. They ask for these changes so that we can have healthier food for everyone. And when I think about the work that we're doing, it is so important because we look at what's happening to our disease rates. I mean, cancer is increasing dramatically.
It's through the roof right now. And Bonnie, we're coming up on a hard break right now. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on the air with Bonnie Hari. We'll return in just a minute after these commercials.
As the corporate media dies, MetroNow.com and TheDailyResistance.com continue to give you a decentralized and independent take on the latest current events as well as historical reference to help you wade through the propaganda of the prostitute media. Our mission is to inform the people of New Orleans about the issues of freedom, health, world events, and much more so that we as a community can thrive in the 21st century. Only with an informed public will we truly be free and independent. So take a look at MetroNow.com or TheDailyResistance.com as your independent news source. Enjoy fresh fruit grown in your yard. JohnnyAppleseedTrees.com delivers and installs fruit trees and fruiting vines to your home or condo. Proudly serving Kenner, Metairie, and New Orleans. Apples, apricots, blackberries, citrus, figs, grapes, peaches, pears, persimmons, plums, and raspberries. All the trees and fruiting vines are grown right here in South Louisiana. Check out the Fruit Tree Guide for more information and visit JohnnyAppleseedTrees.com today. It's a great time to plant. JohnnyAppleseedTrees.com.
Alex Jones. I have believed from the very beginning these are real grassroots uprisings all over the Middle East, North Africa. But when the globalists came out and bragged that they were behind El Baradi and others and are trying to take credit for it, clearly they knew that these rebellions were coming, so they triggered it to make sure their people got in. So I think everybody who's been looking at this from different perspectives has been right.
We're on the march. The empire's on the run. Alex Jones.
Weekdays at 1 on WGSO.
It's Jeff Crouere, host of Ringside Politics. I'd like to introduce WGSO General Manager Richard Tate.
WGSO is locally owned and operated right here in New Orleans. We believe in cultivating local talent and emphasize local programs. If you have an interest in hosting your own program, we have some prime spots available.
Thanks, Richard. Folks, take advantage of this great offer. Email me at jeff@wgso.com or call me at 504-669-6076. Come fulfill your radio dreams at WGSO.
A one-man aircraft, a gyrocopter, landing on the lawn at Capitol Hill. The Blaze Radio's Chris Barnes in Washington, D.C. with the latest witnesses, recordings, and all.
This is not good, people.
Mike Shanahan says he's a friend of the pilot, Doug Hughes, a mail carrier from Florida.
The big thing he was doing there was a matter of civil disobedience.
Shanahan telling Fox News Hughes is protesting campaign financing and corruption in government, and that he wanted to deliver a letter to each member of Congress saying he'd do so by airmail.
The U.S. Mail logo on the side of the gyrocopter, not stopping Hughes from getting airmailed straight to jail by the Capitol Police. The FAA reporting there was no request for clearance. The junior senator from Florida wasting no time getting up ahead of steam in campaign mode. The Blaze Radio's Greg Moore with the latest.
Marco Rubio hitting the campaign trail. In an interview with NBC's Today Show, Rubio explains what becoming the first Latino president would mean to him.
It would be an affirmation that this continues to be a nation of equality of opportunity, that it doesn't matter how your last name is pronounced or where your parents came from or where you started out in life. If you work hard and you persevere in this country, you can go as far as your talent and your work will take you.
While launching his campaign, Rubio taking a verbal jab at Hillary Clinton, calling the former Secretary of State yesterday and saying it's time to abandon leaders and ideas of the past.
Yes, it's true. You can buy fake Twitter followers. Guess who might be doing it? The Blaze Radio's Chris Vermillion reports.
The UK's Daily Mail says more than 2 million of Hillary Clinton's Twitter followers are either fake or just never tweet. According to StatusPeople.com, a social media auditing company, no more than 44% of Hillary's Twitter fans are real people, and at least 500,000 of them are completely fake.
Like everything in campaign season, I'm Dave Perkins. This is news on the Blaze Radio Network. Truth lives here.
This is Jeff Cruier with my commentary of the day. So Hillary Clinton has started her campaign, and the media treating her like the Beatles, like Elvis, treating her like a rock star, falling all over themselves to rush to catch up to her van, not asking the tough questions, giving her the Kim Kardashian treatment. They've reverted back to their role as lapdogs instead of watchdogs. They should be asking Hillary about the email scandal. Well, Hillary, how can you have ignored subpoenas from the House to turn over your email records? In fact, it was just discovered that back in 2012, then House Oversight Chairman Darrell Issa requested information about her use of personal email accounts. She ignored his request for cooperation. So Hillary Clinton continuing to act like a diva, a queen, the media giving her preferential treatment, and the public still waiting for answers, still waiting for the truth, and still waiting for her to be treated like a politician and not a princess. More info on this and the other hot topics of the day, check out ringsidepolitics.com.
What are you doing to stop traffic? When your business is ready to wow the pants off customers, visit Sir Speedy. We produce quality signs, posters, banners, and more that are just the trick for trade shows, promotions, events, and product launches. Whether you're taking it to the street, the floor, or the counter, bigger is always better. For more information or to get a quote, go to SirSpeedyNewOrleans.com.
Jiggers Bar and Grill at 1645 Vets near Bonneville has plenty of convenient parking and is a great place for lunch. Sandwiches, burgers, wraps, salads, quesadillas, all delicious. There's a big screen TV to watch the sporting events, and happy hour lasts from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Great dinner specials under $11, and if you have late night munchies, Jiggers is a place to go. You can dine in or order at 828-3555. See you soon at Jiggers.
To any of my emails, I've even tweeted to their executives, I've left them voicemails, and all I want to do is sit down and talk with them, and I'm hoping being at their front door, at least they can do is let me in. We want to make them look like the leader. We're not trying to bully them. I'm not the boogeyman. Right. I want them to let me in when I knock on their door.
Kraft, if you're listening, Bonnie would like to speak with you. Charlotte's Bonnie Hari rallied the troops Monday in Chicago. Before heading over to Kraft headquarters for a sit-down to talk about dumping the dyes from the iconic brand's U.S. mac and cheese.
Today is a monumental achievement. People have been trying to get artificial dyes out of their products for years.
Vani Hari and some volunteers had been standing outside Kraft's Northfield-based offices when she was eventually invited inside.
Yeah, I wanted to play that clip to illustrate to the listeners, to show, that the effects that you've had, and really in a quick amount of time. That was talking about Kraft and removing the dyes, that are basically petrochemical products out of the macaroni and cheese. How did it feel to to have that done, Vonnie, to be able to accomplish that, because that's huge. I talk to people all the time about the chemical additives, and now the mainstream media really likes to portray that as normal. The chemical additives are good. Whole Foods, as far not Whole Foods a store, but real plant-based foods are bad. Conventional farming is good. Organic farming is bad. Really they've just hijacked the term conventional farming, because 50, 60 years ago, conventional farming was organic farming.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That moment when I was at Kraft headquarters, and I eventually was let in to speak to the executives. That's actually how I opened the book, and it's a really intense introduction if you've read it. And I encourage everyone out there to get this book and read that introduction, because there's a lot of passion behind what was happening during that meeting. But what eventually happened is Kraft has started to remove all of the artificial food dyes from their mac and cheese. They're almost finished. They have, I think, a couple more lines to go, but they started with the Kraft mac and cheese that has the cartoon characters on it, so the ones that are directly targeted towards children. And the reason why this is important is because in Europe, when Kraft sells their product there, they do not use these artificial food dyes. They use real ingredients to color their mac and cheese, paprika and beta-carotene to give it that bright yellow color. But here in the United States, they're using yellow 5 and yellow 6, and both of those are considered additives that can cause hyperactivity in children. In Europe, if you use those additives, you have to put a warning label on your product that says may cause adverse effects on activity and attention in children. And because Kraft didn't want to put the warning label on their mac and cheese, they voluntarily removed those ingredients. They knew as a company that these ingredients could harm children. But instead of doing the right thing, they said, you know what? Our U.S. regulations are lax. We can use these artificial ingredients as much as we want, and we're going to continue to use them. And I felt like that double standard was extremely immoral and unethical. And that is actually what's happening with many products in the United States, where the same American companies that we have grown to trust and that are our American companies have figured out a way to make their products safer for other countries, because other countries use what's called a precautionary principle. An additive is considered guilty until proven innocent. Here in the United States, we have the opposite standard. We actually have a standard where food companies themselves can deem these additives safe without any FDA review. And there's a giant loophole that's happening right now that an organization called the Center of Science and Public Interest is actually suing, or has filed a complaint actually with the FDA saying what they're doing is illegal. There's no safeguards on a lot of these additives.
You bring up the FDA, and that is the FDA is a clear point in how we are under fascism. The definition of fascism is when corporations and state merge, and that the FDA is run by heads of corporations. The corporations put these powers into the FDA, and then they allow these food additives and all these chemicals into our food and water supply. The United States has basically become a chemical dumping ground for the rest of the planet, and I don't understand how people of this nation believe that these chemicals are safe to eat.
Yeah, and what's even more sad is not only is the FDA co-opted by these huge corporations, but many of the scientists that are approving these additives on these boards were the same scientists that work for the tobacco companies, the ones that were vouching for the safety of cigarettes. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting what has happened. And a lot of this information is just becoming revealed now. I mean, this is breaking news that they're finding all of these ties. And that's why I believe, and the reason why I wrote my book, is that I think everyone out there needs to know what these ingredients are, needs to understand what they are, needs to know why they're there. And so when they look at the back of a package and they read the ingredient list, they can make a good educational decision on whether they should support that package of food or not and put it in their bodies. And that's why I wanted to teach everyone how I taught myself about food additives in my book, The Food Babe Way, where I talk about, how to master knowing what the sickening 15 ingredients are in our food, how to find them, what they do, why they're there, what you can do about it, what are the alternatives. And I go through all of those options, and I take you through a 21-day plan where you can take back control of your food and you can take back control of your health and start to feel better, lose weight. And I honestly think look years younger, because I tell you, when I look at pictures of me 10 years ago, I looked older than I do now. I mean, I look pretty freaking young right now, and it's kind of funny to me. And when people card me to go to an R-rated movie, I know I'm doing something right.
No, absolutely. And what I was just about to get into the 15 added chemicals that you talk about in your book. And what can you tell the listeners out there what those 15 chemicals are?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So why don't we just discuss a few of them, because there's a lot of them.
Right.
But let's just talk about the big ones. I think two of the big ones, and they're at the beginning of the list, are growth hormone and antibiotics. Both of these things are used in factory farmed meat. Both of them are destroying not only the planet, but our health. So we really need to decide, when we eat meat, we need to know where it comes from. We need to know that it wasn't grown with growth hormone that's linked to cancer. We need to know that it wasn't raised with antibiotics that are causing the overuse of antibiotics that's causing superbugs in this country and killing thousands of people every year, according to the CDC. I mean, antibiotics right now, 80% of them are used on livestock. They're not used on humans. 80% of them are used on livestock, on animals that are being raised in this country. And a lot of times, they're not using them to treat the sick animals. They are using some of it to treat the sick animals, but most of the time, the majority of them are used in low doses to fatten animals up. They've found that a low dose of antibiotics actually increases the meat content that they can grow, and so it's a profit reason. And I find that extremely immoral and unethical, considering the risk of superbugs that's happening because we're overusing antibiotics. So when we get a superbug and we can't fight it off, we really threaten the human race with this issue. And so that's a huge issue that needs to be addressed in this country. And that's why you'll see why McDonald's is finally reacting. And I know you will see other companies start to react too. I mean, I think the next few companies that need to come clean are, Subway, Wendy's, these other huge fast food chains also need to go and start looking at their antibiotic policies and start improving them. You also need to be concerned, I believe, of these artificial food dyes that we talked about earlier, especially if you have kids. The amount of artificial food dyes has increased astronomically since it's been approved for use. When the FDA approved artificial food dyes for use, they weren't used a lot. Now they're used in everything, and the amount that we're being exposed to is much more. And some of them can even be contaminated with carcinogen because they're made from petroleum, coal tar. So you need to make sure that you avoid those. Another ingredient that I think falls, it's one of those ingredients that makes food taste better. So you're like, okay, fine, whatever, it's not a big deal. But it is a big deal. And the reason is because it makes you overeat. And when we think about the obesity epidemic and the rise of diabetes and heart disease and all of these illnesses related to our weight, we really need to take back control of our taste buds. And so when you see natural flavors on a label, if you see MSG, or if you see any of these hidden names for MSG, which is the way the food industry has figured out to create the same type of compound or the same type of reaction that MSG performs in a food without saying MSG on the label, I have a list of additives that you can look out for, things like yeast extract, autolyzed yeast, that food manufacturers put into food to make processed foods, basically dead food, processed man-made food, taste like real food so that we love it and we keep eating it. And then what it also does is create that umami flavor that makes us eat more than we should, and that's what makes us not be able to stop at one chip when we eat a Dorito. MSG is one of the main ingredients in Doritos. So that's an ingredient that I just don't eat. When I see it on a label, I put the product back down. I don't want to eat it. There's plenty of chip brands out there that don't use MSG, and I'd rather eat those chips because you know what? I can stop after one serving then, right? I'm full. I'm satisfied. I'm great. There's no tricks that are happening. If you look at the way the food industry works, why they're there, what they're doing, the majority of companies are there to do one thing: sell more food and sell it cheaper than as cheaply as possible.
Right.
But there are companies out there that are doing the right thing, and I also talk about those companies in the book and what companies you can trust.
We have Food Babe on with us tonight, and we'll be back after this short break so we can talk about some solutions. Go to thefoodbabe.com and buy her book, The Food Babe Way.
As the corporate media dies, MetroNow.com and TheDailyResistance.com continue to give you a decentralized and independent take on the latest current events as well as historical reference to help you wade through the propaganda of the prostitute media. Our mission is to inform the people of New Orleans about the issues of freedom, health, world events, and much more so that we as a community can thrive in the 21st century. Only with an informed public will we truly be free and independent. So take a look at MetroNow.com or TheDailyResistance.com as your independent news source.
Whether you are new to electronic cigarettes or an experienced vapor, you need to check out my good friend Anthony Kalisa over at Smoke Signals. Over 250 flavors of e-liquids and tons of hardware and accessories with 4 locations in Uptown, Baton Rouge, Slidell, and Hammond, and on the web at smokesignals.com. Mention that you heard this ad and get a 10% discount for your first visit. You can also call them at 504-298-3142.
I'm working 2 jobs and my husband works too. My kids go to school with your kids. I sit next to you at PTA meetings. We live right next door. We've been neighbors for years. You know my family and me pretty well, but here's one thing you don't know. I'm 1 out of every 6 Americans, and my family is struggling with hunger. Like you, we believe in this country. What's hard to believe is in the land of milk and honey, how many hardworking Americans have to choose between paying bills and feeding their families. This is a problem with a solution. Please visit feedingamerica.org today and find your local food bank for ways to help. Every dollar you donate helps provide 7 meals for those around you quietly struggling with hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
This is Michael Savage. You know, talk radio has provided a tipping point for the good of this country. The station you're listening to right now ought to be rewarded for playing its part in keeping the elite's feet to the fire. So I'm going to ask you to do something important for yourself. The next time you give your business to anybody, give it to the advertisers that air on my show and others you have grown to love on this station. To find out more on how you can advertise on my show or others on this station,
This is Jeff Cruaire. Send me an email at jeff@wgso.com and let's get together and get your business growing.
Enjoy fresh fruit grown in your yard. JohnnyAppleseedTrees.com delivers and installs fruit trees and fruiting vines to your home or condo. Proudly serving Kenner, Metairie, and New Orleans. Apples, apricots, blackberries, citrus, figs, grapes, peaches, pears, persimmons, plums, and raspberries. All the trees and fruiting vines are grown right here in South Louisiana. Check out the Fruit Tree Guide for more information and visit JohnnyAppleseedTrees.com today. It's a great time to plant. JohnnyAppleseedTrees.com.
We are on air with Miss Vani Hari, the second most influential person on the internet. Vani, we have a couple of callers, and we don't have much time left, and I really want to talk about solutions. But if you don't mind, I'd like to try to let a couple of these callers ask a couple questions for you. David, go ahead.
Hi, Vonnie. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I want to also thank you for the information in your book. I was able to show that to my family members and get them to stop buying some of the products that were causing my young daughter and two other children to have chronic eczema. It's cleared up their skin, and nobody believed me until I was able to show them something on some paper. And when we put it into practice, we can see the difference, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh, I love hearing that. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear so that they are feeling better and that they are, making progress. I think that is so incredible. And I mean, food is really medicine. It really is. It can be the most powerful form of poison, or it can be the most powerful form of medicine. And I commend you for taking a stand and educating your family and spreading the word, because that's really how we're going to change the entire food system and have everyone have access to safe and healthier food.
I hope you can come back on the show, because it goes by quickly, and we could spend a whole much more time talking about solutions, like Nathan says. And I know you had some recent haters out there. Anything you want to say to the trolls that are attacking you for using common sense and trying to get poison out of their food?
Well, the thing is what we're doing is truly revolutionary. We are changing the market, not them. We are doing things that have never been done in history. I mean, Hershey's, Nestle are removing all artificial ingredients. McDonald's deciding to go antibiotic-free with their chicken. You've got Kroger and Target and Costco and Walmart. All of these major conventional stores get into organic foods. We are changing the market at an absolutely astronomical rate, and they can't stand it any longer. And so that's why you hear the critics getting louder, is because they're losing. They are losing ground. They're losing market share to sell their chemical concoctions. And so they're going to be upset, and there's no doubt about it. But what we need to do is stay focused. We need to keep staying loud and louder than the critics, because I tell you, the market's changing, and it's working, and we are winning.
David, we really missed you tonight. Hope you can be back with us next week. We have one more.
Absolutely.
We have one more quick caller there. I would like to get to. You have anything else, David?
Thanks, Nathan.
I appreciate it, man. Look forward to talking to you next week there, David. All right, we have Billy.
How are you doing today, Benny?
Anyway, hey, yes, how are you?
I'm great. I'm going to say that I highly appreciate what you are doing, and I think more and more people are starting to notice this. I myself have been in fitness for a long time, and I'm in pretty good shape. And at times, trust me, I eat whatever I can eat, which is, I have to admit, to Burger King and whatever else comes. If I have to eat, I got to eat sometimes. I can't spin my wheels going different directions and getting the right foods, and it's just not that convenient. What would you suggest as a strategy for something of that magnitude? How could I go about avoiding these things I've known about for many, many years, and I do my best to stay away from them, for the mass majority that is, from MSG and the like, fluoride and so on and so forth. But what would be some suggestions you could give offhand?
Yeah, so I've been in your position too, because I used to travel a lot for work, and so I was away from my kitchen. I didn't have access to a lot of organic food, so I had to make sacrifices. I had to make choices, and so actually I have a whole chapter dedicated in my book to that, is to eating out. What to eat out at every different kind of restaurant in America, whether it's an Italian restaurant, a Thai restaurant, Indian restaurant, Japanese restaurant, wherever you're eating, how to avoid the amount of processed chemicals as much as possible.
You cover fast food?
I'm sorry?
Do you cover fast food?
I do cover some fast food,
Good.
Which fast foods you should actually go get and what you should get at those places. And one of the places that, I personally love is Chipotle. You know, Chipotle has really made some amazing strides to remove a lot of the genetically engineered ingredients from their food and a lot of the additives. And so you can get a really good meal there, and you can have a minimal impact on all the chemicals that people are putting in our food. And so that's a great place to try. Many of the items on their menu are perfectly great to have, and some of them are even organic. So it's amazing. I go in there and I get a big bowl of the black beans and a big scoop of guacamole and the romaine, and it's delicious, and it holds me over until I can get to, you know, wherever I'm going or whatever I'm doing. And so that's a great place. Another great place that I talk about, and I don't know if you have this down there, but it's a place called Jason's Deli. They are actually have a lot of organic items and a great salad bar and other things that you can stop at. But, you know, I personally would just give up fast food. There's actually a whole chapter on that too, about how to give up fast food, because once you find out, like if you just Google the ingredients in Burger King, like you mentioned, go read the ingredients. I think you'll just be so disgusted that you'll just be like, okay, I don't need to eat there anymore. I need to find something with less ingredients, right? Less additives. And you know, at the end of the day, we're never going to be able to avoid all the food additives in the world. We're just not, you know, unless you're going to go live in a bubble. And then even if you live in that bubble's probably going to off-gas on you. So
For sure.
You can't do that, right? And so it's really about just doing the best you can and picking the best options of where you are. And one of the things that a lot of people don't think about is, like, when you're on the road, like, the best place isn't always the place right off of the curb, you know, when you take the exit. It's maybe a little bit further, but it's a grocery store. Like, Google a grocery store on your phone or before you leave, you know, and know what grocery stores are on your way or wherever you're going, and stop there. You know, they have a lot of grocery stores have great salad bars. They have great grab-and-go things, you know, raw nuts and other things that would be healthier to eat than going to Burger King or McDonald's.
Yes, I appreciate it.
Unfortunately, Vonnie, we are out of time. We really appreciate you coming on the show with us. We look forward to talking to you again. Ladies and gentlemen, get the Food Babe Way. I have the book. I haven't read all of it. I've read half of it, and I'm trying to incorporate as much of this as I can. Please go to her websites, foodbabe.com, and support her, because we need to support people who have a foot in the game in activism. You know, Vanny, like I said earlier, she is a lantern for liberty. So please support her. Please support our show at Battle of New Orleans, battlenola.com, metronow.com, thedailyresistance.com, and please go to all of our social media pages, Facebook, at Battle Nola Radio, and check out our YouTube page at Battle Nola Radio. Thank you.